Hello guys, welcome to another episode of All Out with Anshum Kathuria. Today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Harvey Anderson. Welcome Harvey.
Thank you.
This has been a while to bring this episode about together, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How have you been?
Yeah, really good, thank you.
Are you
busy preparing for the cricket season?
Exactly, we've got the sun out in England and we're here in Sheffield. The sun's out. How are you feeling about the upcoming cricket season?
Well, looking forward to it, particularly if it stays warm.
Yeah. So Harvey, obviously you're associated with Sheffield Hallam University right now. You've coached several years, like 30 plus years. What is it that drives you at this point towards the game?
It's a game that I've always loved.
Yeah.
Since I first started playing as a young boy. For some reason, it's a sport that kind of really clicked with me. I found that I could naturally bowl faster than everyone else.
Yeah.
Which kind of gave me some notoriety and a bit of kind of kudos from that. Love the batting, just love the kind of the cerebral nature of the game. So there's no right way, there's lots of different ways of playing it, and you don't have to be a certain size or build or whatever. There's always a standard, there's always something going on in the game to kind of keep you challenged and interested. So
that is something that's interesting about cricket, isn't it? Because you have space for someone like a 6'4" bulked up power hitter, but then at the same time, a scrawny boy who can spin the ball two ways also has a space in the game. So it's almost like being a spinner or being a batter who comes in lower order is sort of two different sports. So that's something that's so beautiful about the game, as you just said.
You just made me reflect on a coaching session I did last week.
Yeah.
I had one of the Hallam students come in, who's a fast bowler. He's 6'9", alongside my son, who's a leg spin bowler, and he's 5'5". Both training the same sessions, both kind of getting plenty out of it, both kind of involved, but vastly different, even though both really effective as bowlers.
Exactly, and it's one of those things that on a pitch you could see from one end, if you're in a subcontinent somewhere and the ball is reversing a little bit, you could have that 6'9" pacer, and from the other end you could have the leg spinner who's 5'5", and somehow it works, doesn't it?
Yep, indeed. And that's the beauty of the game. There's no kind of right way, there's just lots and lots of different ways, and some ways tend to do better than others.
Harvey, this is what I want to speak to you about, because in this game, like, when you operate as, say, like a head coach, obviously we have big setups in cricket now. You've got your spin bowling coaches, you've got your batting coaches, you've got your six hitting coaches and all of that stuff. But when you're assuming the responsibility of that of a head coach, and it's this entire, this array of players that you've got, what are the principles of your job of handling such a bunch where there's people from this side of the spectrum to this? How does that go around?
So in terms of kind of how you manage the people, actually I'm presenting at a conference next week in Finland all about that, a model that I've called Gamescape, which looks at how we go about and get the head coach to work with batting coaches, bowling coaches, fielding coaches, sports psychologists, performance analysts, the doctor, the physio and so on, and how we all kind of work together and co-create kind of the practices that go on within that. Sometimes within different coaching contexts it might just be you as the coach, but you still have the kind of the physical, the psychological and psychomotor things to look after of the players. So you need to have some understanding of kind of what makes them tick mentally, what they need from a fitness perspective and so on. Even in elite sports you have huge differences in terms of capabilities, and certainly cricket's an absolute minefield in terms of being able to kind of pull people together because they are all so different. So as a coach, your skill then becomes really about how do I understand the individual, understand what they're kind of good at and not so good at, and kind of where I can think of where they can make most impact. So, for example, your example of you converting from a seamer to a spinner, the thing that I saw was in terms of your spin, you could spin the ball and you had some shape, whereas the seam, it wasn't particularly quick and there wasn't much movement. For a fast bowler or a pace bowler, you need pace and you need movement. If there's neither of those going on, that's a lot of work to do. As a spinner, there needs to be spin and some control. If that's not there, then there's a lot of work to do. If you're far better in one than the other, then it makes sense that you go down the route of kind of what you're good at, and rather than not. Rather than going, oh, well, you're rubbish at that, let's spend years working on something that you're not particularly strong at. So I do firmly believe in kind of a super strengths approach. If I identify what's really good in somebody, what can they do, and where can they impact in the game and kind of basically dictate the game to try and get that outcome.
So for context to the viewers, I came to the university cricket team where Harvey was the coach, and I used to bowl some seam-up deliveries thinking, I don't know, I'm Mitchell Stark or something. And we had a particular session where everyone was supposed to bowl spin, and I was bowling some left-arm spinners, which I have always known that my ball spins and turns and like does some sorts of things because I'm from India, so we've got pitches there that would spin. And then I think in just that one session, you were able to pick up that this particular player is good at this particular task and would benefit the team. And then the next session, you just banned me from bowling seam-ups. Like even for warm-up, you were like, no, you're going to bowl spin. So what sort of mentality do you go into a session as a coach that, you know, because you need to be turned on, because that's sort of a thing that you would credit a coach to pick up that, oh, this is my player, is good at this. So what sort of a mentality is it that you go in with the session trying to get the best out of everyone?
Yeah, simple. I want everybody to love the game of cricket. For me, it's the greatest sport in the world, and I want everybody else to experience that and kind of get that and love that. We only do stuff, or we only tend to do stuff that we're really good at. So it's about, for me, it's about finding what you're good at and finding the space to allow you to be good at something, to kind of gain something out of it. If you keep turning up and doing something and you keep failing and failing and failing, after a while you're going to get disheartened. If I can find ways to kind of help you succeed and kind of build confidence, build context around that, you're going to get more out of it. I do, which might almost sound like a contradiction, I do still want you to fail sometimes.
Yeah.
I think failure is really, really important. In fact, I actually created the Failure Festival at Sheffield Hallam University the other year to celebrate failure. Because I think we look at it in a wrong way. But so me, it's almost like the sweet spot. You know, if people can achieve around about 70% of the time, then you're getting a good chunk of success and kind of feeling good about yourself. But there's enough in there to make you kind of look at, well, this is my limits, this is where I need to work. Similar to computer games. Yeah. You know, we do a bit, we go up to a point where we're thinking really good, and then we fail, and it challenges, and then so you have to learn new skills, and then you add to it and you get a bit further, and you fail again, and so on. I'm trying to kind of pull that together. So find ways you can get some enjoyment, some success, make sure there's some failure in there to kind of check your limits, make you upskill, and then move on.
That's very nicely put that, you know, if you don't fail, you don't figure out what you need to work on. And so as a coach, obviously we've discussed that it's a very challenging task as it is. You want your players, because it's like you want the player to be confident, and as you just said, you want every player of yours to enjoy the game. And I think for that there needs to be a good blend of obviously failure, but then also winning. And not just winning, by winning I mean cricket games, but you know that every battle, every hurdle, like for instance for a fast bowler to stay injury free, be able to hit his lengths and work on his outswinger, and then when the ball is older, be good at Yorkers, be good at his slower balls. So it's like all of these sort of little check boxes that eventually give you a victory. So how important do you think that there needs to be a balance of the right amount of failure, the right amount of successes? So when a player's out there, because out there he's on his own, everything he's got in here is what's driving him in a game. So what do you think prepares a player that when he's out there, you know that you're confident of a player you fielded, that he'll be able to manage his own? What sort of work goes into that? Yeah,
so you need to make sure that the practice sessions and the practice environment that you create is absolutely representative of the game that they're going to do. I really hate kind of practice and drills in isolation that aren't actually game-based and game-related. You know, having somebody throw a little underarms at you and keep hitting into a gap, lovely, but there's no fielder and nobody's actually bowling at you. That's a completely different skill to facing a proper bowler and being able to hit the ball into the gap. I don't like slating other coaches, but I saw a session the other day with a coach, and he was getting the batter to hit the ball to field positions. So hit it to mid-off, hit it to extra cover, hit it to mid-wicket. Why would you practice hitting a ball to a fielder? That's the opposite of what you want to do in a game. I see similar in tennis. People will spend ages practicing a rally. A rally is actually the opposite of what you want in a game of tennis. Yeah. You want to be hitting a winner. You want to hit the ball away from the opponent, not to them. So you're actually practicing the opposite thing. So to put it into a cricket context, I want people to practice the stuff that they're going to use. So if you're working on your left arm spin, then you need somebody to bat against you who's going to play in a certain manner against a certain field positions. You know, we spend a lot saying, oh, that's a wonderful shot because we've hit a good technique. It's only a good shot if it's in the gap.
Yes.
So we need fielders. We can't just mindlessly hit balls into a net. We need fielders, and we need to have it game related. And then, yeah, if you hit the ball in the gap, that is a good shot. If you make good contact. If you hit it straight at the fielder, that's not a good shot.
Not a good shot.
Yeah, if you hit it in the gap but mishit it, that's not, you know, it's gone the gap good, but you're not really hit it very well. So game, we need to make sure our practices are like the game, and then we can be confident when you get into a game, you've already demonstrated that you can do it. And therefore, it fits in rather than, oh, well, I look really nice, and I've got a lovely technique, but I don't know if I can do that when the pressure's on.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about making sure that your practice is representative of the game that you're going to go into.
That's very nicely put. That, you know, if you do, like, you do it in practice, and a lot of times people say that. I think Usain Bolt has said that when I go to competition, I'm just there to pick up the medal because all of the hard work's already done. So obviously you need to monitor that, and then you've got, because you're the coach and you're responsible for these 11, rather 15, 20 people, it's just the 11 that we see on the field, but it's all the practice that goes on, and all the players who maybe don't make it to the 11 but probably make a contribution in training somewhere by bringing in a different skill set or anything. So I would ask you that, how are you looking forward to, you know, like, what's your process to putting in the best 11 on the ground? Like, what are you thinking as a coach? What is it that you want for your players to do out there?
So firstly, you've got to look at your squad of players and see who's capable of doing what and where and why. You need to understand the context. Am I looking at an under-9s game versus, you know, a test match team, etc. So the context has a huge bearing. Are we looking at a season? Are we looking at, you know, cup competition? Is there a certain kind of requirement? So obviously you'd formalise a team different for a test match than you would for a T20 or would for a T10 or 100. So there's again, part of the gamescape model that I'm developing. We look at kind of the structure, the rules of the game dictate the strategies that you can use. Those strategies then dictate the skills that you need to have. So if I've decided in our strategy we're playing T20, I'm going to need explosive boundary hitters to begin innings and end innings. In the middle of the innings, I want people to really run and kind of pick up ones and twos and kind of accumulate that, so they'll need a certain level of fitness and speed. Do I have the players that can then execute the game plan, or do I work the other way? So, for example, the West Indies team of the 1980s, a plethora of amazing fast bowlers, all bowled above 90 miles an hour. They didn't need to plan or have a balanced team. And so, you know, do I need a leg spinner and a left? I've got 4 fast bowlers that I can keep on rotation all day and just terrorise batting lineups. So if I've got those assets available to me, then my team tactics are based around that.
So it's like basically like having X-factor players who...
Well, it can be. It depends what you've got. If you've got X-factor players, then you build your team, you can build your strategy around that. If you don't, then you've got to go, right, how can we as a team then do that? So I talk a lot about offence and defence in cricket, which people look at me usually a bit strange. What do you mean? And say, well, what's the most important thing in cricket? How do you win a game of cricket?
Score more runs.
Yep. So therefore, it's about scoring runs. So you have an offence, i.e. score runs, and you have a defence, stopping the opposition score runs. So then everybody within that 11 has a responsibility for scoring runs, and everybody in that 11 has a responsibility to stop the opposition scoring runs. So you work on those, and then you work as a collective. Right, what's the best way I can formulate this offence in terms of scoring runs? What's the best way, given the context and the competition, the opposition, can I ensure that my defence can stop the opposition? And that's how you formulate to win a game of cricket. Now that might change. For example, you've got a group of under-9s. It's actually about everybody playing lots of different roles and experiencing the whole of the game to love it. So again, depending on your context, dictates how you should then coach it.
See, that's very nicely put when you put it in the context that if a test team is playing, you need a certain level of performance. But then when there's an under-9s team, there's probably a guy who's batting, but then he's also bowling spin, but then he's also bowling seam up. And, you know, having to... Because at that time, you're basically just making everyone out there enjoy the game. They're out to have a nice, fun day out. And obviously, you would want to enforce some form of discipline if you're trying to make these 9-year-old kids go to the pro route, because obviously it's a very difficult job to make it pro in such a competitive sport. but I like how you've put it in a way that you need to let them have the freedom to enjoy. And
well, you don't know at 9 years old what you'll be like at 19.
yeah.
And there are so many people, great examples, Craig White.
Yeah.
So if you follow his career, he started off as a keeper batter, then became batter off spinner,
Yeah.
then ended up bowling for England, bowling at over 90 miles an hour.
Is it?
You know, so you look at those kind of career progressions. So myself, I started off as a fast bowler, ended up with stress fractures in my spine, ended up having to bowl spin and become a batter because I didn't have another option. You know, how many people late in career suddenly can be a wicket keeper? Well, if they've experienced it as a child, then they might move into it. If they've never experienced those roles, usually the keeper is just literally the only person who did it from the start.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's really important, you know, that kids should play every role in all sports. You should try have a go at every role, because even if you don't fulfil those roles, you understand your teammates and what they've got to do within those roles. So for me, I wouldn't have any positions or anything within the team until at least under 13. I wouldn't have leagues until under 13. I wouldn't have rec cricket until you're 15.
Yeah.
Because I think you can't predict your test players at 7.
No.
People try. And we've got Manchester City Elite Under 5s Football Academy. I just think it's just insane. But, you know, people push for that kind of recognition. But recognition at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 isn't a predictor necessarily of an outcome when they become adults. So you've got to decide, am I looking to create elite performers here, or am I looking to create the best 15-year-old there's ever been? They're not the same thing.
It's very funny that you point that out, because, you know, we're living in a social media age where it doesn't matter where you're living, you could just get access to content from wherever you are. And obviously I hail from India, and you will just see these 2, 3, 4-year-olds on the internet just smacking balls, and like their parents are calling them, chucking them, I don't know, however many balls. So as a coach, what is your view on that?
It's good practice, it's good to get the kids in, but let's not confuse a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old who can hit a cricket ball well and look like the adult to then predicting, oh, this is a future test star. You know, this is next greatest batter, bowler, whatever, and I see that all the time. Again, they're worlds apart. Just because I can hit a ball fed to me, brilliant, but that doesn't mean to say I'm going to be able to do that in lots of different contexts, the different abilities, you know, further down the line. So it could be, yeah, it's lovely, I can hit these drives all day long, but then when I get to older cricket, different conditions, it starts coming through here. Yeah. I'm not so keen when it's there, and so it becomes different. And also, it's a really kind of heavy label. You know, a young child, 4, 5, 6, oh yeah, you're going to be a future international player. Imagine growing up with that kind of pressure constantly. So it might be nice as an affirmation, but I can see it also being potentially really negative. So for me, it's, kids, let them play the game, enjoy playing the game, being good at the game, and build from there. If they make it, brilliant. If they don't, brilliant, because they're still loving the game, they're still playing the game, and that's the important thing. Some people will, be the best, some people won't be the best, but if everybody loves it, everyone's playing it. If they're not loving it, they're not playing it.
That's because it's just one of those things that I agree that you need to let them enjoy the game. But, because you have been a coach for so long, and have there been like ever any indicators at what age do you think that maybe I'd say 15 is the age where you could spot a player playing and you could think that he's probably got the temperament process in place that have you made a bet that this guy will make it big probably?
So I'd rather I'd call it attributes. To certain people, certain attributes think, yeah, they look pretty good, but whether or not they make it, there's the whole series of different things, and we've got issues in and around kind of the talent development systems. So kids that are identified 15, the great players at 19, they're burnt out by 21. Yeah. You kill them because the pressure and everything else that's gone into that. So I think it's quite dangerous. I understand why people do it, but I think we've got to be a little bit careful with that. And then also what's kind of classically known as the late developers. Yeah. I'm not convinced they're all late developers. I think there may be people of late recognition.
I agree.
That have been that good all the way through, but nobody's kind of picked them. I mean, there's the example Joey Benjamin. I think he made his first class debut at 29. I think it was about 33, 35 when he played for England. So he'd gone through up until 29 and not been recognised at that level and still managed to make an international career. And it makes you think, well, there are clearly different time frames. As I mentioned before, Craig White, he started off as a keeper, then became a spinner before he was recognised. Actually, I can bowl at 90 miles an hour. Well, you know.
Isn't that like a similar story to Mitchell Starc as well?
It's similar to lots of them. So, you know, Kevin Peterson was primarily an off-spinner.
Yes.
And that actually potentially helped him because he wasn't labelled as a batter, so he could go away and bat however he wanted because he wasn't a batter. So he didn't have the, you know, the proper stuff. He just hit a ball and then worked his way up. So there's lots of examples of people who either change what they do or develop late. There are, you know, your child superstars. Look at Sachin. International cricket at 16 years old.
He's playing for India.
Yeah, I think there's a lad in India currently that's played first class at 13, 14 years of age.
He's called Vaibhav and he's
so again,
in the Rajasthan
you know,
setup as
incredible. And you know, so to me, it's not about age; it's about your capability. So you know, I'm sure potentially. Well, look at Jimmy Anderson's 41. He still
wants another season, doesn't he? He wants another Test summer.
If you were picking on merit, I think he'd be ahead of one or two of the England team. If I'm being really blunt.
With you on that.
You know, and it's not an age thing; it's an ability thing.
I agree.
So I think you know, whilst you said potentially, that 15-year-old looks really, really good, I'd be really cautious about predicting whether they've clearly got a future with that. It's they've got some potential. Let's look after it and bring it on. As opposed, that's the next superstar. Let's take them on whatever kind of glittered journey that might be.
I agree. We've talked a lot about coaching, Harvey, your experiences, your methods, and your philosophy around it. Take me back a few years. Your journey as a cricketer. Because I believe you played your first class cricket in Sri Lanka. Mm-hmm. How's that like?
That was incredible. So I started life out as a fast bowler.
You did.
Started getting back problems when I was about 15. Got to 19, got diagnosed with my third stress fracture until kind of career over.
Yeah.
So I kind of fell out of love with the game, kept playing, but wasn't really kind of into it. And then, through various coincidences and other bits and bobs, I ended up out in Sri Lanka, playing a bit of kind of pre-season prep. And then Gaul, at the time, were a nomadic team because their ground had been destroyed by the tsunami. And they had a couple of injuries, were short of a batter, and I asked if I'd like to play. Yeah. And so I rocked.
You never say no. I want to play.
Oh, of course I said yeah. Well, I didn't even realise it was first class. If I'm totally honest, I thought it was the tier below.
Yeah.
When I was asked, I said not a problem, and they sent me to the ground, and I turned up, and then to discover it was A, first class game, and B, in the opposition was Lasith Malinga opening the bowling.
So a day before, you have no idea that you're going to be...
I had no idea Malinga was playing until the morning of the game.
Yeah.
I'm walking around the changing rooms and one or two of the guys say, oh, it's Malinga. And I see this tiny little guy with shaggy
big
hair.
afro.
And I think, well, he's too small to be that can't be Malinga.
Yeah.
That must be, obviously, somebody who looks like it. They're trying to wind me up, and dressing room banter and so on. So I didn't think too much of it. It's obviously somebody who looks like him. And then it wasn't until we got out and warmed up, our team's warming up, their team's warming up at the side of the field, and I look across and watching bowling, and he was actually Malinga bowling.
Were you able to spot the ball in the nets while he was bowling?
I was terrified. I was too busy panicking.
Yeah.
So I ended up playing against Lasith Malinga, who bowled stupidly fast, and with the added variability of he's bowling
where
from over there.
Where are his arms coming from? We have no idea.
So as a batter, you line up, you look at the bowler, you look at the shoulder, you look at the bowling and the point of release. With Malinga, he was there, but the ball was over there.
Coming in from in front of the umpire.
It comes from almost like it came from the umpire. Ridiculously fast, because he was bowling about 90 miles an hour back in mid-2000s. And just bowling absolute rockets. And he'd just been dropped from the Sri Lankan team, so he obviously it was his first game back. So he just ran in and either bounced people or hit him on the foot, and he actually put a guy in hospital and broke his foot.
In that very game,
was it? In that game, yeah. So
did you face him in the game?
I faced one delivery and then took him off, thankfully. So yeah.
Oh, was it a length ball? Was it?
It was back of a length that disappeared through offside before I'd even picked my bat up.
Oh, so you didn't make any contact?
No. Thankfully, they obviously thought, English guy can't play spin, and they brought Chandana on onto me, so it was okay.
Is that the quickest bowling you've ever faced? Apart from a bowling
No, I've been asked this a few times as a few different bowlers. Chris Silverwood, at his peak, I mean, I think Jack Callison. Both myself and Jack Callison have been hit in the head by Chris Silverwood.
So you have that in similarity with Jack Callison.
Yes, we've both been hit in the head by Chris Silverwood. So he was ridiculously fast. Many years ago when I was a kid, I ended up playing in just a midweek friendly game when I was a student at Loughborough, and we played against a guy called Vaughan Hungry Walsh from the West Indies, from the Leeward Islands, who was a tiny little guy who bowled over 90 miles an hour, who just bowled around the wicket and bounced everybody for fun. He was stupidly quick. There's various guys that kind of you rock up in league cricket, that the overseas professional, who can bowl proper speed. Yeah, and it gets a bit, particularly on club wickets. Yeah. So if for test players playing on nice flat decks where it's not doing too much, but playing on some spicy club wickets with poor sight
and back in the mid-2000s where, wickets are like not uncovered per se.
Well, no, I've played against some, when you're playing on a wet uncovered wicket, actually the fast bowlers are quite nice to face because the ball tends to skid on. It's the slower bowlers that cause you more problems, but just poor quality wickets that you don't trust. And you've got people rocking up who are playing international cricket. I mean, one team in the Bradford League, for over a couple of years they had in there Navid Rana Hassan, Chris Silverwood. In other years they had Mohammad Azarullah. They had 4 or 5 quality pace bowlers, 2 quality spinners that were all county level, playing on club wickets against that level of bowlers. So you've not only got to deal with the quality of the bowler, you've also got the poor quality of the wicket as well.
Exactly.
And so that's my excuse for struggling. Yes.
But you've seen this thing around the world because a lot of these cricketers who eventually end up playing test cricket have come through the ranks of clubs. Like Lockie Ferguson, the New Zealand fast bowler, he says he still tries to give 1 game a year to his club. So there have been jokes about you rock up on a weekend on a Saturday morning and then you've got Lockie Ferguson, because club cricket, let's explain it, is not professional. It's not anywhere near professional cricket.
But that happens a lot in Australia. So the Australian system, obviously the grade system, you've got the main grade clubs and then you go into your state second 11, your state first 11, and then you have to be playing in the grade system to be picked. So there was a period of time in the Sydney first grade where Brett Lee was playing and Shoaib Akhtar were playing. So imagine that as a club cricketer, rocking up to the batting, you've got Brett Lee 1 week.
You've got the 2 fastest men in the history of the game.
Playing club cricket. You're not a full-time professional, you've got these guys who are there to have a bit of a game. So I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. I would like to see almost like an umbrella in this country, so you can have your first division county, your second division, then your minor counties and your clubs, and almost have like an FA Cup. So why can't a club end up playing a game against Yorkshire, etc., and actually have these systems whereby you can play against the better players. So there is some astonishingly good club cricketers out there, guys who have been involved with counties, or quite often back in the day people didn't become county cricketers because they had a proper job, as it were. They were doctors, or they were lawyers, or surgeons, or something like that. You're not then going to play county cricket with the salaries about a fifth of what they would have got in a kind of quote proper job. So there's a long history of being some exceptionally good cricketers who are every bit as good as first class players just playing club cricket. And years ago you'd also see the county players used to play a lot more in the club structures. Most counties now are limiting that, obviously for workload management and so on, which I understand from that perspective, but then dilutes the quality of the club cricket. So personally I would like to see, kind of where possible, counties integrating their clubs more and allowing these players to come back and play. So if as a club, if you've helped produce a player that's gone on to play top level, it's then lovely for them to come back to the club because it helps you build more followings within your club. So if Sheffield Collegiate, Joe Root, Michael Vaughan played there. How amazing is that if they come back and evolve around in the club? Well, of course you're going to have lots of people who want to get involved, because why wouldn't you? Because that's the club where they played.
Brilliant, because I think in cricket, like in sport, these stories, and you obviously have your heroes like you named a Joe Root or a Michael Vaughan, and them coming up to your club on a Saturday and just interacting with the youth. Because you worked with a lot of world-class cricketers, how is it like working around this environment of proper elite athletes, and what are they like? Because they've definitely got busy lives, they have to stay in shape for the season, and even when they're not in season, they're relatively fit athletes, fit human beings. So what is it, the environment around these?
Well, the environment's really changing in elite sport, and particularly kind of since the IPL and franchise cricket. So we're getting to a point where players are pretty much contractually owned by the franchises.
Yeah.
So they're rocking up and they're doing one tournament here and then another tournament for the same franchise there, or the same owners there, and so on here. So we're now getting to a point where these franchises are having to coordinate kind of players and what they're doing and their training, and players are almost getting to the point now where they're having to kind of buy in expertise and kind of move around. So I can see a time where everyone's going to have kind of personal coaches, and then you sign up for your franchises and you play here and there. And so on. There's been talk for quite some time now about Jofra Archer.
Jofra Archer, yes.
Being owned by Mumbai Indians and not allowed, in inverted commas, to play for England. So it'd be interesting to see how that kind of works. But again, there's going to be clearly a nature, particularly with the tournaments, the way they're going on, with a big increase in terms of kind of coverage, particularly in the States and the Middle East. People are going to be year-round involved in these tournaments, and it'll be interesting to see how the tournaments are then coordinated. So then how the players go from, right, I'm going to be spending 3 months in this country doing that tournament, I'm going to spend 3 months there, and so on. And whether or not they can fit international cricket into the rest. But yeah, so the traditional cricket season, off-season, that's kind of died a death pretty much now. And people are just jetting in and out, particularly the high-level players, whereas slightly lower down the county players, you'll have your regular county players who will just follow that system, whereas others will be nipping in and out of franchises. And how you can balance that's going to be interesting.
It's a funny thing now, Harvey, isn't it? Because we obviously talk about how the IPL has emerged, and not just the IPL, it's also leagues in every country now. South Africa, they had, in the inaugural season of the SA-T20 League, they had dropped a series with Australia because they wanted to go ahead with this T20 League. But it's not even the board's fault, because they want to bring the money in, and the T20 leagues is where the money is at right now.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's been able to coordinate from, I need to bring in the income to be able to help the game survive, but conversely, how do I set things up whereby I can get my best players playing in the big tournaments to get me the results that I want? And this kind of country versus franchise things, it's going to be a tricky one for administrators.
Where do you stand on it as of now, the country versus franchise debate?
It's a really, really tricky one. If I've got the chance to secure the financial future of my family and the safety by taking a multi-million-pound contract versus a couple of $100,000 playing for my country, it's going to be very, very difficult to not put my country before my family.
But Harvey, having said that, wouldn't you say that if a cricketer is playing for the country, I'm sure it doesn't go for every top 10 nation, but for a country like England or say New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, India, if you are an individual who ends up as one of the top 11 players, you definitely have other ways to make money. For a Joe Root, even if he doesn't go to the IPL, he has his brand deals because he is England's biggest cricketer alongside someone like a Ben Stokes. So there is a point where you need to make the money, but how much money do you really need?
Well, that's up for the individual to decide.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of about my honour and integrity rather than the money, but that's going to be different for different people in different contexts. If you're desperate, you take the money. If you're not desperate, maybe you don't.
That's the thing, because there's no right or no wrong, because it's that individual who's made the effort of starting as a 8 or 9 year old.
I think more for kind of the lesser countries. So, for example, Sikandar Raza out in Zimbabwe, he can make a fortune playing franchise cricket because he's an exceptionally good cricketer. He's not going to be playing many test matches for Zimbabwe because they don't get many test matches and internationals, and then if they do, they're going to get hiding. It's a tricky decision for him. Does he kind of again secure his family's future, or does he support his country? And again, both arguments clearly have kind of value. It'd be easy to say, well, yeah, I'm a patriot, my country comes first. Yeah, maybe.
But Harvey, that's what my view is, because we always have this. I feel there's a lot of notion that franchise cricket is where it'll go. You always get these arguments all year round, but then you see when we had the T20 World Cups, because now with what they're doing with the T20 World Cups is there's a lot of teams now. So there's teams like United States, they're playing cricket. And when United States beat Pakistan in the 2024 T20 World Cup, that brings a lot of eyeballs from everyone. Even if someone's walking on the street, they would know, oh, United States beat Pakistan. So wouldn't you say that that's still for your country, if you're playing for a country like Zimbabwe or Ireland or United States, there's these players that are coming through, like Saurabh Netravalkar from the United States, Sikandar Raza, as you said, from Zimbabwe. A few years ago, it was, what was the wicketkeeper batter, Brendan Taylor from Zimbabwe, and you've got Joshua Little from Ireland, that these cricketers are still coming out. They get a good payday in a T20 league, but then when there's time for the T20 World Cup or some a game of that stature, that level, they still get the opportunity to play against these bigger known cricket teams and put their country on the map.
If they're allowed. So for me, I would like to see more of the associate nations actually involved in World Cups.
Exactly.
I'd also like to get rid of the group stages, but then that wouldn't be so good because for the ICC and for the administrators. So for example, India play Ireland in the first round, and by some miracle Ireland, through a rain-affected game, ended up winning, and India out of the competition.
Yeah.
People are not going to be so happy with that because there's a whole host of revenue then disappears. But you know, if you're looking at fairness and bringing the game on and this sort of thing, you know, as you have had traditionally in certainly the football World Cups, there's a lot more knockout stages, a lot less group stages. Obviously they've got more teams, but why not just have the top 16 and just have a knockout?
I agree, Harvey, but then it's like if you want that sort of a format like we saw with the T20 World Cups, I do think that they involve a lot more teams. But then that's something you can only pull off with the T20 game because that's the closest that comes to the length of a football game where we see so many teams take part. So do you think that in a way if you want to globalize cricket, you think T20 is our best bet of doing that?
It's the most accessible version of cricket. Well, it works or not. You know, it's with great difficulty to kind of expand the Test Championship further.
But are you happy with the current state of Test cricket?
Yes and no. I think it's an exceptional game. I like the Test Championship when you've got one team playing 2 or 3 times more games than another.
Yeah.
And then somehow equating it to meaning the same. I think that's problematic.
I think that's a never-ending debate where we're at.
Massively.
Harvey, just before we close out, I want to address a few things. I was going through your portfolio and you've associated with something called coachesforcoaches.co.uk. That's a website I came across. Talk to me about that.
So yeah, it's called The Coach's Coach. So that's my website. I'm looking to build a kind of a network and resource whereby coaches can then speak to other expert coaches to enhance their kind of learning and knowledge, but also to enable coaches to be able to access the very best of kind of sports science support and so on. So for example, if I'm running a project, I've got a small team, I want some sports psychology insight, but I can't afford to employ a sports psychologist, I might be able to kind of get a few hours, or I might be able to do a bit of a course and get some understanding and build that together. So therefore the quality of coaching can then improve. Sadly, for a lot of coaches, and particularly we see this at the higher level, coaches are going from being expert players and then they're put straight into the firing line of being an expert coach without really sufficient time to learn and understand and do coaching and coaching awards and build that experience. Never mind understanding what a sports psychologist does, what a performance analyst does, what a physio is supposed to do, and then somehow coordinate it when I've never really done it, other than, well, they're the people that come in and do X, Y and Z when I'm in my county team. So I'm trying to kind of bridge that gap and enable people to go, okay, I don't know much about this area, who's an expert, who can I find, and be able to pull people together. So that's kind of for that. The Coach's Coach as website currently is just a series of resources that I've created, so different presentations and blogs and that sort of thing. That are available. I'm sure you can put it in your show notes or wherever so people can.
If you want to name out the website name into that camera.
Yeah, so it's thecoachescoach.co.uk.
Brilliant, Harvey. It was a big pleasure to speak to you about the beautiful game. All the best to you for the season ahead, and I hope to catch up with you very soon.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harvey. Thank you.
Well, good.
Was it good?
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
There's so much left.
We can always do another one.
Hello guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of All Out with Anshum Kathuria. I just want to give a special thanks to my friends and team behind the camera, Rishi and Deida, and a very special thanks to Chris and the Beaten Track for giving us the location. It was a lot of fun making this episode. I hope you all enjoy. Thank you so much.